was building up a resume already, and here I was, even out of the country at 15 years old.
Wow.
I was very fortunate. I had so many opportunities that were presented to me, and I just sallied forth and just took every one of them. I didn't let anything stop me, and I was fortunate that my parents were very encouraging and supportive.
Were you an only child?
No, although I'm considered one. I have a brother that's 10 years older than me, and another brother that's 7 years older than me. So I was the baby of the family, and yes, of course, spoiled. Of course, that's what happens,
But the brothers were encouraging too?
They weren't. They were kind of like out of the house most of the time. During those years, when I was those formative teenage years, my eldest brother was married by the time I was 10, and my other brother, my middle brother, while I was 10, he was 17 already. So there was just so much space between us. But I have to say that my middle brother afterwards was very encouraging. And my eldest brother always thought that I should have a real job. Get that paycheck coming in every week.
There's always one, right?
Oh, yes. But, as I look back over the years, he was just trying to be protective as a father figure, as well as an older brother. So, I understand it. And I'm very fortunate that, my brothers have come to see me perform all over the country. So,
did you ever have a plan B? Or was this it?
That was it. This is all I wanted to do, and I'm so fortunate that I was able to do that and encouraged and supported to do that. I have gone to Florida. I won a scholarship to the University of South Florida, and I double majored in theater and in voice. And
why South Florida of all places?
Because my parents were retiring there.
Okay.
And I auditioned for them, and I won a scholarship, so that worked.
And how was the program?
The program was interesting. Okay. My challenge there was that I knew so much and had done so much already that I felt like I was kind of like going backwards. But I stayed for a while, and on our break, I guess it was spring break, I saw there was an audition for an equity theater in St. Petersburg, the Country Dinner Playhouse, and I auditioned for them, and the show was Fiddler on the Roof. I was 19 years old, and lo and behold, I got in. It was my first equity job.
Wow.
And that was the Country Dinner Playhouse in St. Petersburg. And I've been in Fiddler on the Roof for the last 40 years.
Did you get the role of Teyve?
Oh, no.
Not yet.
No, I was 19 years old, and oddly enough, I got the role of the oldest part in the show. I played the rabbi. But that was the start of my professional career in theater. I had already done nightclubs, but in theater, that was really, my first equity theater. And from that, I was in shows all the time. People would say, Jimmy Ferraro's out of work for a minute. And let's see, so that's how that started. And then I also opened Pasco County's first dinner theater in 1977. I was 21 years old, and that was at the historic Hacienda Hotel. It was the first dinner theater in Pasco County.
What show was that?
Actually, there were shows that I put together myself. They were musical reviews. One was, I think, A Night on Broadway. Another one's Let Us Entertain You. And they were sold out. There's posters now, I think, in the Historical Society in Newport Richey.
Wow.
Actually. So I was kind of, an entrepreneur right out of the box there at 20 and 21 years old, kind of just pushing and doing my thing. And again, very fortunate to be able to have that support then from the community as well. I went back home to New York when I was 23, and I also had been performing all over Florida before I left. I went back to New York, and I saw an audition actually at that time, they were called EPIs, Equity Principal Interviews. And they were interviews that you would have with the casting directors before you actually got to audition for them. So I went to it was for the national tour of Fiddler on the Roof, directed by the American genius of musical theater, Jerome Robbins. And I went to the interview. The casting director was, let me see, because I know you're going to know who this is, Mary Jo Slater. That's Christian Slater's mom.
What?
Yeah, she was the casting director. And I had my interview, and she said that I didn't look Jewish. And I said, what do you mean? Here I am, right?
You're an actor.
23 years old. I said, what do you mean I don't look Jewish? I already did this show before. Of course I look Jewish. I look Jewish, I look Italian, and I've done the show before. She said, I'm sorry, but we're using most of the people that had already been on Broadway in the show, and there's nothing for you. I said, oh, great. So I kind of was pretty upset about that. And when the time came for the auditions, of course, I didn't have the go-ahead from the casting director, so I was waiting to see when they were having open call auditions for equity open call auditions. And I remember the day being rainy and dismal, and I was like, I'm not going to that audition. They don't even want me because, look, she says I don't look Jewish, so why should I even bother? But my longtime friend, Seth Dixon, who I went to high school with, said to me, why don't you just go? What else are you going to do all day long? Why don't you go? You're going to sit at home or not, why don't you just go there and hang out and let them see you? So I did. And I was there for hours and hours, and there was just so many people auditioning at this open call. There was like 600 men auditioning and hanging out there for the day. And I went in and I did my audition, and they said, well, hold on a minute. We would like to give you a call back. Just kind of wait in the hall. And I did. And then there was, I think there was like 24 of us that were called back to audition again. And this was for the first national tour of Fiddler on the Roof. And I did. And then they narrowed it down to about 12 of us. And I did my thing, and that was it. And I didn't hear from them after that, the next day or the following day. And so it was like 3 days later. I had already, checked that off. That's a done deal. Didn't get in it. And I got a call 10 o'clock in the morning from the production stage manager, Val Mayer. And he said, we'd like to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Minskoff Theater. And this is for the national tour of Fiddler on the Roof. So, of course, I was like crazy excited. And I got on the train the next day, and I went there. And I'm at the Minskoff Theater, and there are just two of us there. There's one role open.
Wow.
And there's two of us. Me and...
No pressure.
Me and Charlie Scaramaccia, which is his real name. His stage name is Charlie Barry. So I went into audition, came back out. Charlie went into audition and came back out. And then the Val Mayer, the production stage manager, came out and went over to speak to Charlie. So I figured, all right, I didn't get it. Charlie got it. And then he said, thank you for coming, Charlie. He said, Jimmy, we have a contract for you to sign.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, can I have 20 minutes off because I have to make some phone calls and call my parents and tell them? And they said, of course.
Wow.
Well, and that's how that all happened. So that after that national tour, and that was with Herschel Bernardi as the lead, who had done it on Broadway a zillion times, and Paul Lipson, who's in the Guinness Book of World Records. He's done the most heaviest. He was playing Laser Wolf, Fiver Schfinkel.
Wow. And who did you play?
I actually, my first step in that was I was a papa, and the youngest papa. So I was with the old timers there, the Broadway veterans, and I was the youngest one to to play a papa in the village. I was also a Russian, and Jerome Robbins gave me the understudy to the rabbi, and I just thought it was so unbelievable, because that's the first part that I ever had when I was, in Florida, and then that developed into, after that tour, then there was time off, of course, and we heard that maybe there was going to be another tour coming up after that. And I got a call that they were mounting the show for Broadway. And there was only like 12 of us from the original company of 42 that were invited back, and I was one of them. And that was for the Broadway, and that was, again, Jerome Robbins is the last time that he ever directed the full version of Fiddler. And it was with Maria Kornilova, who starred as Golda in the original Fiddler on the Roof, and with Herschel Bernardi, Ruth Jaroslaw as Yenta. I mean, the cast was phenomenal. And so that's how I made my Broadway debut. And then after that, I did the second national tour.
What's it like going on a Broadway stage for the first time?
Oh my God!
I mean, come on.
Electrifying. It's a dream come true.
Of course,
a dream come true. The wonderful thing about making my Broadway debut is that I had already done the national tour before and worked with Jerome Robbins and Tommy Abbott before. So I mean, I had a step up on it. It wasn't like I was doing a brand new show for the first time. I mean, it was already ingrained in me. So I was very fortunate about that. But it was the time of my life. And I celebrated my 25th birthday on Broadway, which was stunning. And, my parents flew up for the opening night, and we had the big party at Sardi's. It was a dream come true.
Was it at the Minskoff?
No, it was at the New York State Theater in Lincoln Center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Lincoln Center.
What a venue.
Which was just like, I can't believe I'm at Lincoln Center. And, when you're in it, it's like, now that I talk about it, it's like, whoa, it was unbelievable, so exciting. When you're in it, that's what you're doing. And, when I'd go into the theater, every day I would pass Mikhail Baryshnikov, because he would be doing bar, downstairs, in the rehearsal room. So I'd be like, "Hi, Misha," wave hi. I mean, these are just things that were like everyday occurrences,
Wow. Were you living in the city?
Pardon me?
Were you living in the city at this time?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And in fact, I had sublet an apartment from a friend of mine that was right across the street from the New York State Theater. New Lincoln Square was a very beautiful, posh building. I mean, I was living the life. On my 25th birthday, Tommy Abbott, who was Jerome Robbins' assistant, had a limousine waiting for me after the show. And he said, invite, your closest friends, like 6 friends of yours, and I'm going to make a party for you at the Russian Tea Room. And that's how I spent my 25th birthday. Wow. On Broadway with a party at the Russian Tea Room.
Very cool. Did you guys get invited to the Tonys?
Oh, that's an interesting story. We did, but Herschel did not want to perform on the Tonys, so we didn't get to do it that year. I know. That would have been fantastic, because oddly enough, I didn't know it at the time, but my future wife was on the Tonys that year, because they won the best musical on Broadway 1982 for Nine. My wife is an original cast member of the musical Nine. Wow. So, I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you meet her then?
I didn't, but I should have, because we were invited to the same parties and all. We were invited to Tommy Toon's 40th birthday party at Studio 54, and of course she had to be there. I was there, but we never met. There's many times, in fact, when I was doing Fiddler in Las Vegas at the Aladdin Hotel, my wife had just finished up the national tour of Sweeney Todd, and she was in Los Angeles.